take my mask off, but I'm far enough away here. So, thank everybody for traveling here today. I know it's tough during COVID times and tough enough for what we're doing here. It's a sad day, but you know, Mom had a full and loving life, and you know, filled with the love of her friends and family. And she, like everybody else, wanted more time, but you know, her body took her as far as she could. It was her time, and somehow she made it long enough for all her children to return and two of the grandchildren for the last couple of days, and we're able to keep her company for them. You might have seen me digging up some dirt. There's usually some fresh dug earth by the graveside, and there's a tradition I want to observe after, at the conclusion of this burial ceremony. I know Lindsay wants to speak now. Jennifer, you can decide whether you want to do something. We're also going to have something, you know, when we go back to Birchwood. And also there we'll have time if anybody wants to tell a story or do something there. So, Lindsay, did you want to?
Okay. Hi, everybody. There are so many memories of our time with Grams. We all knew her as a sweet, giving, and kind woman. A few memories I've been thinking of over the last few days, family traditions and how important they were. Julie sent us a picture of us doing piggy banks, and I had totally forgotten that that was our holiday tradition so many years ago. Birthday sleepovers at Grandma and Pop's. I was thinking about going to Maine with her and Brooke and I, and she was literally stopping to smell all the flowers, and we're like, come on, we gotta go. And she was like, I gotta take pictures and I gotta smell them. So I have pictures of her smelling the flowers as we were walking. And then going on the submarine adventure in Maui and showing Brooke and I her and Pop's favorite places. Recently, when Jacob and I came in, she bestowed more wisdom upon us. I was sharing about a client who I referred to as being a nurse in past tense. And Grams asked, when did she stop? And this made me think about my client in a different way and change some of the therapeutic techniques I've been using with her. I will miss calling her and laughing with her for over an hour. I will miss her insight. I will miss her scritches. I will miss her family updates. I will miss her hugs and her smell. Dr. Irving Yalom, a famous psychiatrist, once said, I think all kinds of meanings in life transcend yourself. They're linked to other generations of people around us, to our children and our family. We're passing on something of ourselves to others. I feel that's what makes our lives full of meaning. Thank you, Grams, for providing me guidance and wisdom. I love you.
Jen, did you want to do yours now or later?
Yeah, I'll do it now.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Julie? Sorry, I had to do it on my iPad. Okay. Our parents give us life. Our grandparents give us a sense of who we are and where we come from. This week, we say goodbye to a mother-in-law, and a grandma. And for how devastating this time is, I'm trying to focus on how incredibly lucky I've been to have my lovely grandma in my life for the last 36 years. It's rare for a grandparent-grandchild relationship to be so essential, so long-lasting. But then, Grandma was that exceptional kind of person every single day of her life. I was a senior in high school when Grandpa passed. I moved away from home a few months later. Unfortunately, since then, I haven't returned home. So Grandma and I didn't get to see each other as often as we would have liked. However, we never let distance break that bond. About a year before Grandma was officially diagnosed with multiple myeloma, when we were trying to still figure out what was wrong,
I called her and I told her I was going to call her every single day until she felt better. She said, well, how about calling every other day instead? So for about the last 12 years, we spoke almost every other day. And this is when our relationship really seemed to flourish. There were lots of conversations, mostly about family, but we spent a lot of time talking about food. For the last 12 years, I've been dreading this week, dreading this day, and dreading this moment. But through the past decade, I've documented a few conversations that we had that I thought I would share today. The first one is about Grandpa, and of course it's only fitting to start here. She would tell me, as you all know, they met in high school, and they instantly became high school sweethearts, even though she was dating his best friend first. Hashtag go grandma. She would tell me that she would have to take 3 buses to see each other on the weekends, but it was worth it. When he was drafted for the war, he wanted to get married, but Grandma wanted to wait, but she said she'd wait for him. He was gone a year, and she said he wrote her every day. Shortly after he returned, they were driving through Grosse Pointe on Jefferson Road that runs besides the lake, looking up at the big lit up houses. He pulls the car to the side of the road, puts the car in park, and reaches over to the glove compartment. He looks at Grandma and proposes. She said he didn't even get on one knee, and they didn't even get out of the car. I like to think that he couldn't wait a moment longer. She said, I know it's not the most romantic story, but in that moment, it was complete happiness, knowing that we were finally together again, and we had the rest of our lives to spend together. Becoming a mother was Grandma's purest joy. She would say, ever since I was a little girl, I always wanted kids. I knew from day one I wanted to be a mother, and that feeling just exploded as I got older, and especially when I met your grandfather. She said, having Jeff and each one of my kids were the best years of my life. So to the 4 kids, know that in these difficult moments, that you are the light of her life. As for the grandchildren, we have an ongoing joke between us cousins about who is the favorite. Grandma would send us cards for every holiday with $5 in it. A few times, I definitely told my sister and probably a few of the cousins that I got $10. And then I told them that it was Grandma's way of saying that I was her favorite. Of course, that wasn't true. But anytime Grandma signed a card, there were always 2 little X's and 2 little O's next to her name. You could look at any card and you'll see that. So when the holiday cards would come, I'd always want to peek at Julie's to see if her card had any extra or less X's or O's than I did. Of course, being how extremely fair Grandma was, everyone always got the equal amount. We all believe we are Grandma's favorite, but that's how Grandma was. She made each of us feel that special. The truth is we were all her favorites. But Toph, seeing you at the end and how you took care of her will always leave an lasting impression on my heart. I can speak for all of the cousins when I say our grandparents made such an impact in our lives. Wilner is a powerful name, so much so that 3 of their married granddaughters, Julie, Lindsay, and I, none of us changed our last names. And for the 2 granddaughters that have kids, of course, Julie and I, our 4, soon to be 5, children's middle name are all Wilner. That speaks to how influential Grandma and Grandpa were to all of us and our extending spouses. Grandma and I would talk about death, as morbid as that sounds. I think I've been fearing this day for so long that I needed to talk to her about it. The next conversation I wanted to share with you occurred 16 years ago on our nomad trip. I was lucky enough to go to Nantucket for a weekend with Grandma. At that point, Grandpa had only been gone for 2 years, and I asked her what she thought about death. She said, I believe you live the same life over and over again until it's perfect. And that's how I know this is my last life, because it's been perfect. As much as I wanted to, I never brought this exact conversation back up with her again, because it's how I wanted to remember it going. I don't know if she still thought this way at the end of her years, but at that moment in time, I knew that that's what she believed in. and that's special to me. It shows what she thought of her life and all of us, that it was perfect. One thing we all know that Grandma believed in is that everything happens for a reason. In 2016, she said to me,
Just a truck going by Grandma's house.
in 2016, she said to me, Jennifer, everything happens for a reason, and you may have no clue what led you down a path. It may take years, or it may take decades, but eventually a light bulb will go off and you'll understand why. She proceeded to say, my whole life I think back on things that happened, why they happened the way it did. Now it all makes sense. Sometimes you just have to grit your teeth and have faith in the sunshine upon you. With 2020 already being such a crazy year, and now to add in the loss of our grandma, nothing does seem to make sense. But let's all take her advice right now. Let's grit our teeth. Let's have faith in the sunshine, that this is all happening for a reason. And when you feel that sunshine upon your face, know that's her smiling down, watching upon us. Grandma, although you're not physically with us anymore, we can promise you that your legacy will live on. Through the stories we tell, the memories we share, and the traditions we carry on. I love you, Grandma. I will miss you terribly, but you'll always be with me.
That was beautiful. You know, and it's nice enough out here. I think we can do a lot of the stuff here. Julie also prepared something. I'm not sure whether or not it would be. Let's see if it would be loud enough. Can we do something? Julie, can you see how loud your volume is? You're still on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Let's see. No.
How's it going? Is it loud enough?
Let's see. Do you guys think it's loud enough to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, you know what? I'll prop it up a little bit so they can see you.
That won't be as loud then. Point the
Yeah,
speaker
just-
in.
It's fine. It's fine.
All right. All right. And before you start, I just want to comment. I didn't ask either daughter to prepare something. It's difficult to do that. So it's appreciated that taking the time to do that. So, all right, Julie, you're on. If somebody has trouble hearing, just let us know.
Yeah. Okay. When you look up the word matriarch in the dictionary, the word means a woman who rules or dominates a family. Or a mother who is head and ruler of her family and descendants. Many women are mothers, and very good ones at that. But it takes a special individual to be a matriarch. That person has to have the instincts of nurturing, the aura of knowledge and wisdom, and the patience to be the mother of more than just her immediate offspring. It takes years to fortify this role. Years of being where you were needed, solving crisis after crisis, and being the mother within the family circle that everyone looks up to, can trust, and feel safety from. My grandmother was an extraordinary woman. Her gift was her ability to exude a motherly figure to anybody from any walk of life. Looking back to her child-raising years, she was the mother of 4 young children. And this is the part that I, as a mother of 3, find most impressive. For over a decade, raised her kids with no outside help. She was the proud den mother of Cub Scout Troop 1024 for over a decade. While raising her 4 kids, she was constantly taking in children of family members and of neighbors in need. It was not uncommon to have other kids living in their household, or neighborhood kids spending a significant amount of time at the Wilner residence. Andy. When I meet childhood friends of my parents, aunts, and uncles, they invariably talk of my grandmother's kindness and how she played a mother figure throughout their childhood. As an active grandmother, my grandmother provided care for all grandchildren through their growing up years. As an older child myself, she was on babysitting call for all of the children's births and told fond and detailed stories of those early days together. One of her most treasured memories was the moment that two siblings meet, and she got to be there for all of them. Sleeping over at Grandma's was an annual event with our birthday sleepovers, which kicked off with a shopping spree at Toys R Us and were followed by a special night at Grandma and Pop's. In addition to these special days, Grandma provided regular care for many of us grandkids, taking several days a week of nanny responsibility. As grandkids grew older, this turned into attending athletic events, graduations, and eventually frequent and long phone calls or FaceTimes so that Grandma could continue to be part of our lives. In her final few years at Samaritas Senior Living Facility, her motherly and nursery instincts couldn't be worn down. She had strong opinions on how things should be run and in helping her fellow residents. She got in trouble a few times for playing a charge nurse role when help was needed. For example, when one resident fell on the stairs. After that incident, she was told not to touch other residents, which she laughed at and said she wouldn't dream of not helping others. I struggle with how to say goodbye to my grandmother. As I reflect back on the multitude of ways she brought our family together, I see a pattern of family traditions. A few highlights. Entire family vacations in Harbor Springs. Absurdly large, juicy hot dogs. Perfectly crafted, colorful 12-layer Jell-O. Grown-worthy holiday family photos of various configurations. Christmas Eve piggy banks with meticulous counting of coins. I could go on, but I'll stop here. As I work to say goodbye to my grandmother, perhaps the best way to honor her memory is to continue some of these traditions in our own families, to foster the bringing together of family, and to relentlessly include and nurture those around us.
Thanks, Jules. And it is such a beautiful fall day. It kind of reminds me, I mean, it's been more than 30 years when we buried Grandma T up here. It was a beautiful fall October day.
October 9th.
What?
Grandma T
Yeah,
died.
not that far away.
October 9th.
So I've got a couple of minutes of what I wanted to say. I was going to do it at Birchwood, but it's nice out here. People don't mind standing and doing most of the work here. I'd like to do it here. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming. She'd be very pleased to see everybody here. And I wanted to do just a little perspective for a moment on Mom. She was, you know, a different person to everybody. You know, Aunt Margie, Margie, but she was born Marjorie Louise Tewksbury, Franklin and Ada, on May 27th, 1927. In the hospital, you know, they look at your watch band and your armband, and they want to know your date of birth, and you know, they would say it for, you know, 5/27/27. And they go, well, what year? Because they thought I was saying 27 twice, and they weren't used to seeing 27 as like, well, no, that's not a year that you can be born in and be here. But it's like, yeah, you know, she's 93 and a half. You know, once you get older, it turns into a half again, just like when you're three and a half, you know, it's, when you're older, it's 93 and a half. So, but to give you an idea of how long ago that was, Bob, you'll like this. It's that was the year they started Mount Rushmore. And how far we've come in those times is that's the year Charles Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic. So a lot of things have happened since then. But as you know, she grew up the second of 4 daughters. Met my dad at Cass High School in a biology class. The story was they dissected a frog together, and you know, he became a doctor, she became a nurse, and they did a great job of raising my 2 brothers and sister and I. So anyways, welcome here. It's appropriate that we're here in Harbor Springs, where Mom and so many of us have lived and enjoyed the area. We all have many living and past relatives here, so it's just quite appropriate that we're here. My first trip up here was in 1952, the year I was born, but it was before I was born. So I've been coming a long time too. So I'd like to also do a special thanks to my sister Laura countless hours of compassion that she's provided for Mom over the years. In particular, the last few weeks, Paul never left her side the last 48 hours. I got 2 more pages. I don't know if I'm going to get through this. Jennifer came in against our advice. Julie would be here, but she was able to spend 3 or 4 weeks with Grandma this summer. So she got to be here during some quality time. And Bob flew in quickly from Colorado. Topher was invaluable taking care of Grandma the last couple of days. Lindsay and Jacob, long drive, and I appreciate all the grandchildren that are being here. Special thanks to my wife Terry. She spent a lot of time taking care of Mom. Terry's almost like a second daughter to her. She came to our house in 1972 and lived at our house in my bedroom while I was at school. Did 2 terms of student teaching there. So she's been through a lot of things. It's been almost 50 years. And she's cleaned out 4 or 5 houses now. So, all right, I just got to read this. Mom inspired a love of family that was instilled in us all. We all look forward to our frequent family gatherings, even when it meant a lot of travel for some. Other people often commented that we seem to have a lot of family get-togethers. And it was remarkable that we actually enjoyed them. A lot of people commented that they disliked or even dreaded their own family get-togethers. We really cherished our gatherings, and particularly those in Harbor Springs. Mom had a wonderful life and marriage, and she so enjoyed her nursing career, but left that to take care of her 4 children. She loved to travel. They had some great trips, including Japan, Switzerland, Alaska, and others. After Dad passed, she took us all down to Nashville for this cancer, what was the name of it, Paul?
Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Rock and roll house.
Team and training.
Rock and roll. It's a long name.
Country music.
Yeah.
Country music.
But
Half marathon.
we had a great weekend, and how many of us were there? 14 or something like that. Mom didn't run the half marathon. But it was nice. So she's, of course, spent a lot of time up here. 4th of July was always wonderful. She was able to make one trip out to Bob's great house in the mountains. And I think that was probably her last flight. It was difficult for her. The house is at 9120 feet, I think. And we had to rent a supplemental oxygen generator. So she was on kind of a long leash, but she was able to be there and enjoy it. The house is, that's Bob's baby. And she had also previously made a trip out to California to see her first grandson, Link, great-grandson, Link. So she was blessed with 5 and a half great-grandchildren: Link, Lex, Locke, Miles, Charlotte, and Jennifer's daughter to be born in January. And I don't know the name of that baby. I think that is a good tradition not to let anybody know, because they make a face or do something. And but Jennifer had the special foresight to tell Grandma a couple weeks ago what the baby's name was, and told her, you got to keep it a secret. Grandma wasn't always that great about keeping secrets, particularly how she was at the end, but somehow she kept the secret. I didn't even know that she knew. I mean, she literally took the secret to the grave. So when you were a kid, did you ever buy one of those trophies that said World's Greatest Mom? I know I did, but it really takes a while to realize that it was true here. Pretty much all of us think our moms are great. But as I got older, more and more people told me, you really do have a special mom. And I began to realize that, but it really does take time to appreciate your parent. You have to get a little older. If asked to describe my mom, I would say she was a kind, gentle, and nurturing soul. But she was tougher than she looked and acted. So it's not easy to lose a parent, and don't let anybody tell you that just because they lived a long life that it makes it easier to finally let go. You really do appreciate them more as you get older, particularly when you become a parent yourself. As a kid, you kind of take your parents for granted and think they'll always be there. But eventually they won't be, and you don't always get a chance to thank and appreciate them. When you get your own kids, you get a different perspective. When you're babies, your mom is just about the whole world. But as you get older, your mom is different to you at different ages. And I read a pretty good description of this some time ago, and I looked it up, and it's, here it is. When you're 3 years old, you say, "Mommy, I love you." At 13 years old, you say, "Mom, whatever." At 16, "My mom is so annoying." At 18, "I want to leave this house." At 25, "Mom, you were right." At 30, "I want to go back to my mom's house." At 50, "I don't want to lose my mom." At 70, I'd give almost anything for my mom to be here again. I'm not 70 yet. We were very lucky to have her as long as we did. She's always been there for us, and she still will be here forever, but now it's in our hearts, in our dreams. Sometimes I dream about my father, and it's good to see him again. It seems natural in the dream, even though you think, like, you'd normally say, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" But dreams are odd, so who knows? They're a strange window into your mind. I do know that though Dad's gone from this existence, he's forever in my and our hearts, an integral part of me, so maybe it shouldn't seem strange to see him in his dreams. Mom, I'm going to miss you, but I'm looking forward to seeing you again in my dreams. You'll always be part of us. All Mom wanted to be was a good wife, a good mother, and a good grandmother. It turns out she was a great wife, a great mother, a great grandmother, and a great great-grandmother. My father cast a long shadow, but I was happy to walk in it. My mother taught me love of family, to be kind, and always to stop and smell the roses. Mom did what a parent was supposed to do. She inspired me and my siblings to be a better person. Bye, Mom. You'll be missed, but not forgotten. Thanks. Sorry. Laura, do you have a poem you wanted to read?
Oh, God.
Sorry. I didn't think I'd be so emotional.
That's okay. I sort of wrote a little something, but I think this is all we need to hear from me at this point. Your mother is always with you. She's the whisper of the leaves as you walk down the street. She's the smell of certain foods you remember, flowers you pick, the fragrance of life itself. She's the cool hand on your brow when you're not feeling well. She's your breath in the air on a cold winter's day. She's the sound of rain that lulls you to sleep, the colors of a rainbow. She is Christmas morning. Your mother lives inside your laughter. She's the place you come from, your first home, and she's the map you follow with every step you take. She's your first love, your first friend, even your first enemy, but nothing on earth can separate you. Not time, not space, not even death.
Thank you.
I can say I was her favorite son-in-law. Hands down. There's a story that happened much too early, and I won't say the exact year, but Mom and Dad were out on the trip, and I spent the night with Laura in the house. And the next morning when they returned,
You skipped some details. But
yeah, well, like I said, not too much information. But she noticed a very large footprint in the bath mat and approached Laura and said, "Did Andy spend the night last night?" And Laura had to say yes. And she goes, That's okay, he's a keeper, but let's not tell Dad. She accepted me very early on. This has been a great family to be with. I don't think she was a selfish person at all. She gave every day. I know the last couple of years have been challenging as her health failed, and she demanded a lot of attention and help, but that wasn't her intent. I want to say Toph stepped up, in my mind, a lot on Sunday night and showed some compassion, and I think he's going to be a very good doctor from what I saw. She loved grandchildren, she loved great-grandchildren, and while she would have loved to have seen Charlotte, I think she was really waiting for Charlotte to be born, because I think she wanted to make sure that Laura had something to focus on after she was gone, because she took so much of Laura's attention. And she kept asking, when will September come? When will September come? Because she knew, you know, with COVID and everything going on, the chances of her really spending much time with Charlotte was going to be minimal, if not at all. But it's ironic that, you know, Charlotte came home on Friday at noon, and Grandma went into the hospital at 2 the same day. So she held on until the day after she was born, and then that night things started to deteriorate quickly. But I think she was really looking out for you, not for herself to see Charlotte, but she just wanted to make sure that Charlotte was there. Jake, thanks for providing that, because once we get back from up here and we kind of get some sleep caught up in the next week, focus is going to be on Charlotte, and we're looking forward to it. Thanks.
Does anybody else have?
I want to get my book and just do it
Okay.
here, so I'll be right back.
Jeff, what sort of something else when I've been telling people?
Yeah,
as like-
there's a I've got
Let me just, and I was telling people that, you know, we were gonna bring her up north to be laid to rest next to Dad, but on top of that, her sisters, her brother-in-laws, her mother, her grandparents, her great-grandparents, and even her great-great-grandmother are all here, on top of assorted cousins and Aunt Effie, I mean, Uncle
We're kin to
Elmer.
half the cemetery.
Well, we outlived that piece of it. We're going to take over the annex.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
loving grandma.
yeah, we're
but
getting the band all together.
it truly, to me, is a homecoming for her to be with all that family, you know, here. And I find some comfort in that too. She sort of told me, she goes, I need to figure out a way to cut a hole in my casket and in Dad's so we can hold hands.
That's good.
I'm gonna do the best I can. There's a theme of just how much love and giving she always had. Everybody else's feelings she was concerned about. There's a book, kid's book, it's called I Love You Forever, that I think summarizes Mom and what she was all about. Our mother held her new baby and very slowly rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she held him, she sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby will be. The baby grew, he grew and he grew, and he grew. He grew until he was 2 years old, and he ran all around the house. He pulled all the books off the shelves, he pulled all the food out of the refrigerator, and he took his mother's watch and flushed it down the toilet. Sometimes his mother would say, this kid is driving me crazy. But at nighttime, when that 2-year-old was quiet, she opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, looked up over the side of the bed, and if he was really asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby will be. The little boy grew, he grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was 9 years old. And he never wanted to come in for dinner. He never wanted to take a bath. And when Grandma visited, he always said bad words. Sometimes his mother wanted to sell him to the zoo. But at nighttime, when he was asleep, the mother quietly opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, looked up over the side of the bed. If he was really asleep, she picked up that 9-year-old boy and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby will be." The boy grew, he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a teenager. He had strange friends and he wore strange clothes and he listened to strange music. Sometimes his mother felt like she was in a zoo. But at nighttime, when that teenager was asleep, the mother opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, looked up over the side of the bed. If he was really asleep, she picked up that great big boy and rocked him back and forth, back and forth. While she rocked him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby will be." The teenager grew, he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a grown man. He left home and got a house across town. But sometimes on dark nights, the mother got into her car and drove across town. If all the lights in her son's house were out, she opened his bedroom window, crawled across the floor, looked up over the side of his bed. If that great big man was really asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be." Well, that mother, she got older. She got older and older and older. One day she called her son and said, "You better come to see me because I'm very old and sick." So her son came to see her. When he came in the door, she tried to sing the song. She sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always." But she couldn't finish because she was too old and sick. The son went to his mother. He picked her up and rocked her back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And he sang this song, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my mommy will be." When the son came home that night, he stood for a long time at the top of the stairs. Then he went into his room where his very new baby daughter was sleeping. He picked her up in his arms and very slowly rocked her back and forth, back and forth. And while he rocked her, he sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be."
Thank you. And as we finish up, I made a couple of notes here because not everybody is familiar with this, but I'm going to talk about a Jewish burial tradition that I think is kind of special. Mom wasn't Jewish, but sometimes she said she wanted to be. You know, she had a Jewish husband, more of a cultural Jew than a religious Jew, but Jewish nonetheless, and eventually had a Jewish son, Jewish daughter, in-law, 2 granddaughters, and 4.5 great-grandkids. So I think the Jewish tradition's appropriate here. And for us Wilners, we all have Jewish blood in us. So shoveling the dirt on an open grave is a time-honored tradition. The physical contact with the earth is important. Generally, there's fresh dirt from the grave. They're going to provide some, although I kind of tried to dig some up. The tradition is the shovel is placed with the blade away, showing the reluctance to leave your loved one behind. And they're going to come up in just a minute and lower the coffin. And you take some dirt from the shovel and you drop it onto the coffin. Generally, you place the shovel back into the ground And that's a nonverbal act signifying that no one's obligated to do this task, particularly in this, COVID environment. So don't feel obligated. It's your own choice. Andy, I know you handed a shovel to somebody once.
It was a bad thing.
And they did, but the person was startled. But the truth is, some people actually do that because it shows that it's a shared act. And this shoveling of dirt does happen at some non-Jewish funerals, although it's usually dropping flowers or something like that, because it's a pretty harsh thing to do. It's painful to do it. It's what's called a mitzvah. It's a good deed, because you're doing something that person can't do themselves. It's the ultimate respect for the dead. The sound of the earth falling on the coffin is really a sound of finality. And after you've emptied a shovel onto a loved one's casket, there's no denying death. But it makes it possible for the healing to begin. So with that, if we can have you come up and we'll lower that. They've got a pot of fresh earth. Anybody that's interested in doing it is welcome to, but there's no obligation. Very fortunate with the weather. It's been very nice to have this whole ceremony right out here. Beautiful trees, literally in the shadow of her house here. I appreciate everybody standing for so long. I'm glad the weather was good, but this allows us to go back and forth with start the healing and being a little bit more happy, which is what you would want with this all together.